John Agar is the nice-looking young man, introduced by John Hoyt to pretty June Kenny. And when boy meets girl, well, they do what comes naturally. But the loss of love has made this mild-mannered man into a maniac. A maniac who wants to make you a plaything. And the fearsome fact is, he knows how to do it.
Why, I'm your friend.
How would you like to be a living doll this madman can do with as he pleases? A monster his own woman had reason to flee. See, the world that the child in each of us knows. See, a baby doll take a bubble bath in a coffee can.
What are you talking about?
Sally.
Tell her. He said that tonight
he was going to kill us all.
It only takes one of us to go for help.
Feel the fantastic fear of living in a normal world, but being dwarfed by people many times your size.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're going to catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, Doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first!
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Thanks for tuning in to the American International Podcast. I'm Jeff Markin.
I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And on this episode, we are discussing Attack of the Puppet People from 1958.
Attack of the Puppet People was directed by Bert I. Gordon from a screenplay by George Worthing Yates, which came from a story by Bert I. Gordon. It was produced by Bert I. Gordon for Alta Vista Productions.
Attack of the Puppet People stars John Agar as Bob Westley, John Hoyt as Mr. Franz, June Kenny as Sally Reynolds, Michael Mark as Emil, Jack Kosslyn as Sergeant Paterson, Marlene Willis as Laurie, Ken Miller as Stan.
It also stars Laurie Mitchell as Georgia Lane, Scott Peters as Mac, Susan Gordon as Agnes, June Jocelyn as the Brownie Leader, Jean Moorhead as Janet Hall, Hank Paterson as the Night Manager, Jamie Forster as Ernie Larson, and Bill Giorgio as the Delivery Man.
There's no cold open for Attack of the Puppet People. It jumps right into the credits, which plays over a bunch of characters in the film and some members of the production team standing in bottles.
It opens with the typical Albert Glasser bombast. And yeah, we see a bunch of people, I call them tubes. They're cylinders with an opening at the top. They're meant to be dolls, which we'll find out later in the movie. But here we see such people as Bert I. and Flora Gordon encased, as well as a few members from the cast. And some guy I think was one of the financiers of the movie, probably his wife.
And once we get through the credit sequence, the movie starts with a mail delivery at the Tilford building. Ernie the mailman heads up the elevator to the 5th floor. This is an elevator that people can't handle themselves. There's an elevator operator on duty. He's played by Troy Paterson, and this is his first appearance in an AIP picture that we've seen, but we will see him soon in High School Hellcats, Tank Battalion, and The Spider. There's also a troop of brownies and their leader on this elevator. The brownie leader asks the elevator operator where they can find Dolls Incorporated. They're going on a field trip, and Dolls Incorporated is located on the 5th floor, in Suite 502 specifically. The scout leader is played by June Jocelyn, who also appeared in Amazing Colossal Man, wore the Colossal Beast as Mrs. Edwards, the mother who desperately wanted to get a sweater to her girl who was in the school bus at the Griffith Observatory. She also appears in Teenage Caveman and The Spider.
The brownie troop and the mailman get off the elevator and head to Dolls Incorporated. They were invited to go on a tour. They go inside and see the secretary.
This is Janet Hall, played by Jean Moorhead, who appeared in Amazing Colossal Man as the woman in the bathtub, and in Motorcycle Gang as Marilyn.
Mr. Franz, who's the owner of the doll factory, isn't quite ready, so Janet allows them to ogle the pretty dolls on display. Well, all of them, except the ones that look like the ones we saw in the credits.
These dolls are on their own special shelf, and a couple of girls do try to get a closer look, and Janet Hall comes and reprimands them and tells them that Mr. Franz doesn't allow anyone to touch these dolls.
And now we cut away to Sally, who's reading a help wanted ad in the paper.
Sally is played by June Kenny, who we know as Tina from Sorority Girl, and we'll see later when we cover the saga of the Viking women and their voyage to the waters of the Great Sea Serpent and the Spider.
The ad reads, "Girl wanted for Dolls Incorporated," but didn't he just have a girl working there in the last scene?
Sally goes into Dolls Incorporated, but finds the place empty. She starts looking around, and Mr. Franz appears behind her. Mr. Franz is played by John Hoyt, who we've seen in X the Man with the X-Ray Eyes and The Time Travelers. He also did a whole bunch of TV appearances, such as appearing in Leave It to Beaver, Star Trek, The Monkees, and on 6 seasons of Gimme a Break as Grandpa Stanley Kaninsky. He sneaks up behind her and says, "Young lady, do you like my dolls?"
I had to laugh out loud at that one. It's delivered so creepily. And he slaps his hand on her shoulder when she's not looking. He shows her the display dolls. The ones that he's showing her are made by Revlon, and they're fashion dolls wearing fancy outfits. And those are the only ones he shows her. He says they're fashioned from all walks of life. A bride, a housewife, a nurse. Yes, the full gamut of the female experience for sure. Sally says that he treats them like real people. Franz supposes that to him, they are real people.
At this, Sally decides that this isn't the job for her.
I think she's pegged him for a weirdo now.
She starts to leave, but Franz asks her to please stay. He can be the judge of whether or not the job is for her. He asks her about her family. There is none to speak of, and no one would miss her if she vanished unexpectedly, so that makes her perfect for this job.
She still tries to skedaddle out of there, but the phone rings, and Franz pleads incompetence. He has no one to help him make his dolls, and he's terrible at paperwork, and he can't pick up a telephone. He's sure that she'll do fine, and he pays the usual wages, which could be increased. And if she wants to, she can just give the job a trial run for a couple of days, and if she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to stay.
Franz has Sally answer the phone just to prove that she can do this job.
And he can't do it, so somebody's gotta.
So she picks up the phone, says Dolls Incorporated, and hands the receiver to Franz and tells him it's for him. He's the only one there, so I'm sure that was a shock to everyone.
She says it's Mr. Grant. Franz says he'll take it back in the workroom and goes back to do so.
So the caller, Mr. Grant, is inquiring about Janet Hall, Franz's former receptionist. She was supposed to start working for him after leaving Dolls Incorporated last week, but she never showed up for work. Franz says he doesn't know how to reach her, but if he hears from her, he'll be sure to let Mr. Grant know. Franz hangs up the receiver and picks up a cylinder with a doll in it.
Sally knocks on the door and tells Franz that if she's to work for him, she needs the cash ledger. He has no idea where it is. That was Janet's department. He's still fondling that doll tube as he tells her that he'll be out directly to help her look, and he shuts the door on her, returning that tube to the work table.
So Franz goes out to help Sally look for that ledger, and the camera pushes in to see that this doll really does resemble Janet Hall. And the music cue signals us to be alarmed.
It looks like a photograph of her. 6 weeks later, Sally is diligently at work when Bob Westley, the best salesman in St. Louis, enters looking for Franz. I don't know how announcing you're the best salesman in St. Louis is any kind of a brag when you're in L.A., but I guess it's supposed to mean something.
Bob Westley is played by John Agar, who we've previously seen in Flesh and the Spur and the telemovie Zantar, The Thing from Venus. We will be seeing him again in Jet Attack, Journey to the Seventh Planet, and a couple more telefilms from Larry Buchanan. Bob asks to see Mr. Franz, but Sally says Mr. Franz isn't to be disturbed when he's in the back room. Bob thinks Sally should at least let Mr. Franz know he's here, and then Mr. Franz can decide for himself whether he wants to see him. So Bob takes initiative and opens the door to the back room himself, but Mr. Franz isn't there. Sally jumps up and closes the door, explaining that Mr. Franz is in the back room, and reiterates that he won't want to be disturbed. But Bob isn't going to settle for this. He asks if she can't phone him or send smoke signals or something.
Sally says that Franz would be furious if she called him right now. Bob says, Franz? Furious? He's the mildest guy he knows. Are you afraid of him or something? Sally wants him to go so she can get back to work. She heads back to her desk and he lays hands on her. Ugh. He tries to apologize and says that they can become friends. And then Bob asks if she's scared of him for real. Sally says she's not scared, but Franz can be rather peculiar, taking them so seriously, like he expects them to answer. Them? Asks Bob. Why, the dolls, of course, says Sally. Bob opens his mouth and laughs derisively. Sally starts pounding on the typewriter in frustrated anger.
The next scene, there's a crowd getting on that elevator, including a different mail carrier. This guy is Special Delivery. He's played by Hal Bogart, whose entire acting career consisted of appearing in films released by AIP. He was in Motorcycle Gang as Walt, who I suspect was one of the townspeople who was taken hostage. He also appears in Jet Attack and Submarine Seahawk. And on this elevator are also Bob and Sally. The mail carrier has a special delivery for Dolls Incorporated, and the elevator operator tells him it's located on the 5th floor. Sally volunteers that she works there and she can take the delivery for him.
The delivery guy says that it's a registered letter that he has to deliver to Janet Hall. The elevator operator asks whatever happened to their regular mail guy. The special delivery man says that old Ernie disappeared, mail sack and all, 2 days before he's due to retire. That's suspicious.
They reach the 5th floor, and Bob, Sally, and the letter carrier go into Dolls Incorporated. Franz is in the back room, and he receives a call from Sally about the letter he has to sign for, so he heads to the front office. He signs for the letter addressed to Janet Hall. Franz says he's expecting her to stop by in the next couple of days, so he'll see that she gets it. After taking care of that business, he invites Bob to the back room. Bob stops to offer an insincere apology to Sally before following Franz to the back.
He apologizes for hurting her feelings, as if her having hurtable feelings was the actual crime there. And for some reason, this non-apology makes her smile. Oh, girl, no. In the back, Franz has Bob wait in the doll room while he heads back to the no admittance area, the back room, so that he can close the door. As he does, we see old Ernie's mail sack hanging from a peg on the back of the door. Dun dun dun.
In the next scene, Franz, Bob, and Sally are meeting with the doll dress salesman. The salesman is played by Frank Lowell, who didn't have any other acting credits with the AIP, but he did have a story and co-writer credit with Jan Lowell, probably his wife, for High School Hellcats and Diary of a High School Bride.
Yeah, why is there another salesman here? What does Bob sell? We haven't seen him sell or try to sell anything.
He doesn't sell doll dresses because if he does, then this guy is seriously undercutting him.
So this salesman's offering his dolly wares to Franz. Franz asks Sally what she likes, and she picks out a doll wearing the white organdy with the blue ribbons, a ridiculously flouncy dress with an enormous hoop skirt. Franz wishes Sally could model it for him. Ugh.
Franz then proceeds to order 2 gross of the strapless organdy dress and 2 gross of the negligee. The salesman asks about lingerie, and Franz will take that too.
A negligee is lingerie, though. Written by a man, I guess. And then Franz asks to keep the dress that Sally liked and have it charged to his account.
The salesman says that'll be fine, and he leaves. Then Sally goes back to work, starting with dumping out the trash. She takes the trash from the back room and brings it into the front, and when she dumps it, she finds several ripped pieces of paper that she picks up and lays out on her desk and reassembles them. And it's the letter that had been written to Janet Hall, and it's been ripped to pieces.
Oh no. And now Bob and Franz are hanging out in the workroom by, I guess it's some sort of doll press that Franz is running.
Yeah, apparently Bob is now a doll maker.
Sells nothing this entire movie, but he's the best in St. Louis, just not here.
He's wearing gloves along with his suit for the hard labor he's doing. The phone rings and Franz answers. He does know how to answer the phone. Sally tells him that his old friend Emil has come to see him. Franz hangs up and explains this to Bob before kicking him out and inviting Emil in. Emil, played by Michael Mark with no other AIP credits, is an old friend from Franz's showbiz days. Emil is talkative and tells about how life is on the road.
Emil asks about Emma. Franz plays dumb. Emma? Emma? Yeah, your beautiful golden-haired wife. Franz says that he's tried so hard to forget that name that he sometimes almost succeeds. Anyway, she left him in Luxembourg, ran off with an acrobat.
Emil's sorry he brought it up, but Franz assures him he's happy now, and he'd like to go to the theater and visit Emil's marionettes. So now we're at the theater, and Franz is making a clown marionette dance.
Ugh, it's so creepy the way that clown dances.
After the short performance, Emil tells Franz he'd like to bring him in as a partner, but Franz turns Emil down. He says he's much too content with his doll factory. He suggests they go and eat and then go back and visit the doll factory.
Emil diagnoses Franz as hiding from the world because Emma left him. He's surrounded himself with the likeness of people, but not their spirit. Franz calls it peace, but Emil's not too sure about that. But Franz is, because he doesn't have to worry about being abandoned ever again. He loves his dolls and they'll never leave him.
As they leave, they pass by the night manager, played by Hank Paterson, who appeared in The Amazing Colossal Man and The Spider, but is probably better known as Fred Ziffel in Green Acres. And he takes a bite of his sandwich.
They made sure to show us that. And now we're at the drive-in, or the Rosecrans Drive-I, as the sign tells us.
Drive-I Theater, where Bob and Sally are watching The Amazing Colossal Man.
Sally asks Bob why he picked that movie. Bob says it's something different, and he likes things to be different, doesn't she? And then they don't say anything. They just watch Glenn Manning freaking out in a circus tent for a while.
Finally, Sally says that Mr. Franz told her that Bob was going back to St. Louis tomorrow. Maybe, says Bob. How would you like to come with me? What would I do in St. Louis, she asks.
Oh, live in a pretty little house, become Mrs. Bob Westley? Lame-ass proposal, dude.
Sally doesn't know what to say, so Bob tells her not to say anything. They kiss, then go back to watching The Amazing Colossal Man. Bob breaks the silence by suggesting they go to Las Vegas tomorrow and make it official. Sally feels she should tell Mr. Franz before disappearing on him. Bob says he can tell him. He'll be seeing Franz in the morning anyway. She just needs to be packed and ready to go at 10 o'clock a.m.
Sally thinks that sounds wonderful.
They kiss again as Glenn Manning from the screen says, "I'm not growing, you're shrinking."
I have to admit, as product placement goes, this actually worked out kind of cleverly. It's very transparent what he's doing, but still. Because the double feature on this was War of the Colossal Beast. And I can see giving people a preview of what they're about to see.
It's more transparent in the scenes where Glenn Manning is walking in the desert. Ba-dum-ching.
Oh?
You can see through him.
Oh. Good one. At Sally's, she's packed 12 suitcases full of stuff, but Bob isn't there, and it's 11:15.
She's waiting for her ticket out of town when the phone rings. It's Franz, asking why she didn't come into work today. She asks if he's seen and spoken with Bob. Franz says that they talked this morning, and he's gone back to St. Louis. And Franz does expect to see her at work this morning.
Sally's face falls as she realizes she's been ghosted by her dopey fiancé, and now she has to go to work. Sally arrives at the office, asking Franz how Bob left. Franz says it was by train, and that he had his ticket all ready. She asks if Bob mentioned her at all. Franz says, oh yeah, he said he asked you to marry him, and you said yes. Then I guess he bugged out anyway? He's really twisting the knife here. He's being just about as cruel as he possibly can to Sally.
Franz says he was given to believe that Sally wouldn't be working for him anymore once she and Bob were married. And that makes him sad. He doesn't like it when people leave him. Sally sobs and Franz tries to comfort her, suggesting she should just forget about Bob.
I doubt that's very hard, but Sally thinks Bob would never do this to her. Something must have happened to him. And then she spots what did happen to him. She finds the likeness of Bob in a tube. She thinks it looks just like him. It is one-dimensional after all.
Franz says he made it this morning after Bob left. He explains that this way he can keep a little piece of Bob with him, even though he's left them.
He's actually flattered to be told that it looks just like Bob, and he compares himself to a composer, fitting the world into his symphony. Then he tells Sally he has to leave.
Then he takes the doll and locks it in the cabinet in the front room with the other special dolls. Franz asks Sally to lock up. He has his own key. Franz leaves, and Sally jimmies open the case. She picks up the Bob doll to examine it more closely.
She doesn't open it, though. Now Sally's at the police station. She wants to discuss the missing persons report she filed about Bob. She tells a Sergeant Paterson that Franz did something to Bob, and when pressed says that Franz turned Bob into a doll. Sergeant Paterson stands up. Interview over.
Sergeant Paterson is played by Jack Kosslyn, who appeared in The Amazing Colossal Man, War of the Colossal Beast, The Spider, and Empire of the Ants, all for Bert I. Gordon.
Well, they should know something about people being shrunk down or blown up then. Sally knew he wouldn't believe her.
Yeah, the sergeant feels she's trying to prank him, but he has to take her seriously when she drops the names of Janet Hall and Ernie the Mailman.
He has those case files on his desk.
So the two of them go to visit Mr. Franz. When they get there, Sally notices that Bob's tube is missing from the display case. They go into the back room, and the sergeant tells Franz what Sally has told him, that he's making people disappear and turning them into dolls. What would make you say such a thing? Asks Franz, while a John Agar doll sits on the table next to him.
After Paterson compliments the doll and its extraordinary likeness to Bob, Franz says thank you and asks, is it a crime to surround himself with the dolls of the people he loves? I think it seems crime adjacent, at least.
The sergeant asks to see that doll, and Franz explains that he finds his inspiration from the people in his life. Then he lights a match and throws the match into the bottle, and the doll goes up like it was made of paper.
Sally was very distressed to see that, and Sergeant Paterson has to hold her back. What did you expect? Asked Franz. They're only plastic. Then he pulls out an entire case of Bob's. Paterson says, looks like your boyfriend took a powder, and then tells Franz, be seeing you. Franz invites him to drop in anytime.
When the sergeant leaves, Franz locks the door behind him. Then Sally starts to leave. Were you thinking of leaving me too? Asked Franz. Of course, says Sally. She can't continue to work for him. She goes to the door, but Franz has locked it.
Franz says that he can't bear to let Sally leave now, with her pretty eyes, her voice, the flowers on her desk, whatever that means. She says she must go because she can't bear to be there for another second. After fumbling at the door, she turns around. As the camera closes in on her, she screams.
Sally awakens, wearing a Sally-sized napkin,
with her head on a cord of some kind,
and a large bright light hanging over her head. She follows the cord and finds a Sally-sized phone next to her and screams.
It's bigger than she is, really.
Then Franz appears, telling her that he's her friend and he's brought her some clothes, including that strapless organdy dress with the blue ribbons that she was so fond of.
She wouldn't want to see Bob wearing only a napkin, would she? He gives her some toilet items, a brush, comb, etc., along with some stockings.
In case we haven't established it, Sally has been shrunk, and she is now doll-sized.
I thought it was obvious, but yes, we probably should have said something. She doesn't understand what's going on, though. He leaves her to dress in semi-private, but we watch as she unpins her napkin.
Then Franz sets down the Bob container on the ledge beside her. Franz explains that he's in a state of suspended animation. Sally opens the jar and pulls Bob out, and Bob immediately starts to wake up. Franz explains that the fresh air will revive him in no time. Bob comes to and starts lobbing things at Franz.
Then he and Sally cling to each other as Franz explains that he doesn't understand why his little friends always exhibit such hostility towards him. He hasn't really harmed them, and think about it. With him, they have no bills, no taxes, no family to support. He sees to everything. And at that point, I started to wonder, how do I get in a tube? Franz says they never get bored. They can sleep all day, and he'll bring them back to life for parties and treats.
But Bob is pissed. He wants Franz to make them their regular size again. But Franz likes them the way they are now. Then Bob asks what he's done to them, and Franz explains.
Because they're not going to tell anybody, are they?
Franz uses a slide projector as an analogy. When he projects an image onto the wall, if he moves the projector closer to the wall, that image becomes smaller. Franz had been thinking about this, and he wondered if he might be able to use a similar principle with living things.
Maybe. Franz wants to demonstrate how it works. He puts a dish of milk on a windowsill next to an open window and lures the cat into the lab as he explains how he breaks down people's molecular structure with a frequency or something. By now, the cat has come in and started drinking the milk. He puts the kitty on the table with some treats and starts the high-frequency ray and aims it at the cat. It's really hard to explain what's going on, but the cat goes through one of the tubes and ends up on a different table, now tiny.
I don't understand the science at all.
Well, it's not really science, it's science fiction.
Emphasis on the fiction. Franz hands the miniaturized cat to Sally, then says he's going to introduce her to some of the other little people who live with him. As Sally cradles the cat, Franz goes to his cabinet in the front room and selects 4 dolls. He puts down a jar containing a woman, and Bob pulls her out. She introduces herself as Georgia.
She says, "Hi, big boy," to Bob.
Georgia is played by Laurie Mitchell, who we remember as the tall blonde Phyllis in Girls in Prison.
Oh yeah, she's saucy too. Next to come to is teenage Laurie, who's been in suspended animation longer than the rest of them because Franz asked her to sing for him and she wouldn't.
Next to be introduced is Stan, played by Ken Miller, who was Vic in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. And finally, Mac, Pride of the Marine Corps, played by Scott Peters, who appeared in Invasion of the Saucermen, The Amazing Colossal Man, Motorcycle Gang, Suicide Battalion, Hot Rod Gang, Submarine Seahawk, and Panic in Year Zero.
Mac makes eyes at Sally, and then Georgia and Mac tell Franz it's time to get the party started.
She wants to celebrate the new arrivals. So Franz goes to the refrigerator and pulls out doll dishes and champagne.
It's 1 shot of champagne. You must have shrunk that from a regular-sized bottle.
The puppet people all grab a cup, except for Bob and Sally, who are still cowering in the corner.
There's also a petit four, which is a tiny little cake that, at their size, they can all share.
Georgia asks Sally and Bob if they're engaged, and when's the wedding? Bob says they'd better ask him. Poor Bob and Sally, says Franz. There's no one your size to marry you. I'll have to see what I can do about that sometime, he smirks.
Franz is going to collect a priest. Franz leaves and Sally screams at the others. How can you be so calm? Yell, scream, try to get away, do something. Georgia says that she adjusted to her new life in 10 minutes. She's never had it so easy. Max says, why fight it? Because you can't change it.
And Laurie pipes up that she gets it. Sometimes she has to do things that she doesn't want to, just for a little bit of freedom.
Ugh, guess she's referring to singing, but it could be something more sinister.
Mac begins explaining that when they're put back into the jars with the capsules, don't breathe it in. That's what puts them to sleep.
How is that going to work, though? Because if they don't breathe it in, the top's going to go on and they won't have anything else to breathe. So it has to work eventually.
Stan announces that Franz is coming back, so Mac has to clam up.
Franz returns with a regular-sized record player and drops a generic bebop tune. Stan and Laurie start jitterbugging.
But then Franz turns off the music and tells Laurie that she must sing for them. She doesn't want to, but Franz is persuasive, so she sings My Living Doll to an embarrassed Stan.
Occasionally she turns to Franz and just rolls her eyes at him. After a verse or two, Franz hears the bell ring. Franz starts the record player and goes to answer the door. It's Emil, and he's there to tell him about opening night at the puppet show.
He's trying to get Franz to come out with him, but Franz is distracted by the puppet people he's left loose in his back room. He can't leave them unattended for too long.
So Emil goes into the whole spiel right there. He simply must tell him who came backstage last night. I thought this part was hilarious. Poor Franz is at someone else's mercy for a change. Emil had to bore him with every detail right that minute.
The puppet people realize Franz has company and will be busy for a bit, so Bob suggests they use the telephone. He holds the receiver while Sally dials the phone.
Yeah, she's the only one that knows the number to the police department because she just called them yesterday. And, of course, 911 wasn't a thing yet.
She shouts into the phone, as does everyone else, but they can't be heard over the music. And they can't turn it off because Franz would come in to see what they were up to.
The switchboard operator just hears the music and concludes it's just a prank call and hangs up.
Meanwhile, Emil is still talking to Franz. Franz tries to get to the back room again, but Emil's just not going to let him get away.
Back with the dolls, Bob proposes that they fire up the shrinker, but reverse it this time. So the 3 men set Operation Embiggening into motion.
If Bob messes up, they may be killed, but they all agree that it's worth the risk. Max says that he was the first one to be shrunk, so he deserves the chance to be the guinea pig. So the puppet people get to work. They lower the phone receiver to the floor so they can climb down the wires. Bob and Mac work their way to the machine while Stan throws a rope over the doorknob so he can look through the keyhole and serve as lookout.
They all have a strenuous climb here from the floor to the table, the doorknob, and we'll talk about it later, but it was really hard on them. They're working to scale, so they have to go as far up as the table or the doorknob actually are in order to achieve this effect, or so it seems.
Bob is successful in turning on the machine. Meanwhile, Emil is still trying to monopolize Franz's attention. Franz tries once again to make his way to the back room, but Emil isn't going to let him.
Stan tells Bob and Mac to hang on, but once he sees Emil dragging Franz out, he tells him that they can go back to work.
But after another minute, Stan says they better be getting back. So the whole operation is reversed, and the 3 men climb back up the telephone wire.
Stan has to unlasso the doorknob, and they all must go back up via the phone cord, and then haul the phone back up.
Franz manages to get Emil out of his hair, just as the puppet people put the receiver back into its cradle.
And Laurie and Stan resume dancing.
Then Franz turns off the music and starts gathering his playthings.
Party time is over. When he says party time is over, he holds a stopwatch down over them. It's like clock size to them, just to prove that their time is up. He holds up a tube saying it's time to get in, and then we fade to black.
There was a note pinned to the floor directory of the Tilford building announcing that Franz is looking for a girl to do general office work. Sergeant Paterson is in the lobby reading this as he's waiting for the elevator. Then Paterson rides up to the 5th floor to talk to Franz.
Inside the office, Franz hears the bell and tells whoever it is to come back to the doll-making area. Of course, it's Paterson, who quizzes Franz on needing another secretary. How did he lose Sally? Franz says that she went to St. Louis to be with her fiancé. Paterson says he could have saved Sally the trip. Bob never showed up there. Franz thinks that's strange. What could have become of him? Paterson says that that's why he's there, duh.
Just then, one of the brownies that we saw earlier comes in and asks if Franz could fix her dolly. This is Susan Gordon, in a bit of nepotism, daughter of the director. And this is her only appearance in an AIP film. Paterson excuses Franz so he could take care of his customer. The brownie's name is Agnes, and her doll Susie has been decapitated. Agnes explains that her dolly ran out in the street while she wasn't looking. Franz says that she should spank her doll. I do, says Agnes, but it doesn't seem to do any good.
Franz can really relate to having naughty dolls with minds of their own.
Paterson asks Franz about the back room.
The one that says no admittance.
Franz says there isn't anything back there that would concern him. Nonetheless, Paterson would like to see what's back there, so Franz reluctantly hands him the key.
As he's distracted, Agnes finds the kitty cat, who's now living in a matchbox.
Agnes thinks this cat is adorable and wants to play with him. The cat looks up at the giant kid, smiling down on him and says, nope, and crawls back into the matchbox the way it came.
But in reverse. Agnes wants to take the cat with her, but Franz says no because adults are going to ask her awkward questions about her miniature kitty cat.
Franz tries to take the matchbox from her, but Agnes is not going to give it up without a fight. Paterson returns and asks about the contraption in the back. Franz tells Agnes she could play with the kitty until he gets back. Then Franz gives a brief explanation of his doohickey and volunteers to show him how it works, but Paterson says he has to get going.
He doesn't explain how he's shrinking bodies. He just says it's for doll accessories, I believe. He takes a large size thing to make a smaller size model.
And he's going to show Paterson how it works because that could get Paterson to stop investigating him.
I mean, not if he thinks it could work on people, so he has to give a plausible explanation why he has that thing.
But he wants to put Paterson in it and through it to show him how it works and shrink him down so that he won't be bothered by him anymore.
Well, that would be kind of cool because later Agnes says she saw it working, and this would be the only chance she would have had to see it working. So it's weird that he doesn't do that.
But isn't that Paterson she tells that to? So
yes, it is. Well, there could be another cop looking for Paterson, but they'd have to hire another person.
Paterson goes to leave, but he sees what appears to be a little girl playing with matches. So he asks what she's got there. Franz distracts Agnes with a doll that plays music, and he grabs the matchbox and the cat inside. Paterson says he'll be back to speak with Franz about those missing people. Then he leaves his suspect alone with the child.
After he leaves, Agnes asks if she can have the doll. Franz says no, but she can come back and play with it and the cat anytime she likes.
Now Emil has brought his Dr. Jekyll marionette into Dolls Incorporated for repairs. Apparently, the marionette won't change to Mr. Hyde when he's supposed to, and there's only 3 men in the world that Emil would trust to repair him, and Franz is the only one that's local.
Franz offers to do a rush job for Emil for free to have it ready by the matinee tomorrow. Then Emil wonders what Franz is doing that's making the police interview him. Sergeant Paterson showed up to his hotel to ask if Franz regularly makes people disappear.
Franz just shrugs this off and pushes Emil out the door, telling him to be sure to let the night manager know that he'll be coming to the theater this evening to drop off the repaired marionette, and that he'll see him later. Then Franz starts packing. He grabs a case and pulls down the Bob and Sally dolls, but he drops the container containing Sally, and she wakes up.
After her lid pops off, she comes to. She wants to know what's going on. Franz says that the police are getting too close, so he's decided to end things. For all of them. He can't bear to leave them alone, so they can all meet death together. There's nothing worse than loneliness, he says. I don't think he understands how lonely they wouldn't be if he let them out of their tubes.
But he knows what they can do. They'll have one last party, a going-away party for all of them. At the theater. A theater party.
Ooh.
So he has to wake everyone up so they can all get ready.
And now we cut to puppet prep time. Georgia is taking a bubble bath in a coffee can as Laurie dabs lipstick from an enormous tube onto her lips.
Georgia is excited. They've been having so many parties lately. But Laurie hopes that this one isn't their last. Georgia asks what she's talking about, and Laurie calls Sally from behind a cupboard. Sally comes out and explains that Franz told her that tonight he was going to kill all of them. Georgia has to hurry up and get dressed so they can tell the boys.
Why wouldn't they tell them right away? This is front page news.
Yeah, this news travels really slow among the Puppet People clan.
There's only 6 of them. They're all on the same table. So now the men are in their finery, and they push a tiny candy box divider out of the way.
So now the Puppet People are united, and Bob says that they heard Sally tell Georgia, so there's no time for talking now. They need to take action. Stan suggests they try the phone again, but Bob has a better idea. They have a piece of paper. Stan finds a pencil, so they write a note and fold it into a paper airplane. Bob picks it up and tries to throw it out the window, but it falls to the floor.
I don't think that was a great plan, especially the note was just 5th floor, send help. I don't think anybody would take that seriously. And it could blow so far they wouldn't even know what building. Now Franz has all the dolls in their case without their tubes and says that they can ride to the theater that way.
He tells them they'll take a taxi to the theater. That'll be nice, even though they won't be able to look out the window. And the bonus is he won't put them to sleep for this trip. Franz closes the suitcase full of Puppet People, gives it a good shake, and heads to the theater.
What's funny is that by the time he picks it up to carry it, they would have been head down in that case. That had to be the most uncomfortable ride ever. And now we're at the theater. The dolls are sitting in the case next to the puppet stage.
Franz is performing with the Dr. Jekyll marionette for the Puppet People. The night manager comes over and offers Franz some more coffee. The Puppet People, still standing in their suitcase, wave to try to get the manager's attention, but he doesn't notice them. Franz tells the night manager he's still got coffee and he's fine.
After Franz shoos the manager away, Bob reveals to the others that he kept one of those sleep capsules, and if they can slip it into his coffee, they may not be able to make him go to sleep, but they will definitely slow him down.
Then Franz asks for a little audience participation with his puppet show. He wants Sally to play the part of Jekyll's fiancée. Bob tells her to go on and do it, and to keep Franz's eyes off his coffee cup. So Sally plays the scene, taking instructions from Franz, while Bob sneaks over and drugs the coffee.
Sally's gamely playing her part, but then she screams at the off-screen transformation of Jekyll to Hyde, which was the thing that Franz was supposed to be working on. Would have been nice to see how that works. His face changes somehow.
At the sound of Sally's screams, Bob snaps. He runs onto the puppet stage and yells up to Franz, "If you're going to kill us, do it already!" Franz chastises Bob for ruining the final act. Bob now grabs the Mr. Hyde marionette and wrestles it to the ground.
He's destroying it.
Franz shouts to Bob to stop. He's breaking the marionette, but Bob doesn't care. All this shouting alerts the night manager, who comes back to see if Franz wants any more coffee. Franz says his coffee is fine, he has plenty, and he takes a sip to prove it. The night manager leaves once again, and Franz looks down and notices that his puppet people have skedaddled.
Franz calls out to his puppet people in alarm. Next we see Bob and Sally escaping the theater via a door that's ajar. They're immediately spotted and chased by a rat the size of a panther. The rat is then chased by a regular-sized house cat. The rat wasn't the size of a panther, it's just the way that it was shot. It looks ridiculous. Bob and Sally run past a car parked on the street. As the rat passes, it's as tall as the top of the hubcap. It's a really bad special effect. The rat returns to normal size as the cat tackles it, and Bob and Sally get away.
Inside the theater, the night manager returns to check on Franz once again. Tiny voices call for help. Franz explains that he's just practicing throwing his voice, and the night manager leaves once again. This is getting too weird for him.
And now Bob and Sally are running down the street. There's no one to help them because it's 5:30 in the morning.
They have to make it to the Tilford building to try to embiggen themselves, but it's a mile away. At their size, that's the equivalent of 6 miles, and they have to go on foot.
But there's nothing to it but to do it. You press on. Now the night watchman returns to the stage and sees Franz among the seats, hunting for his little people. He asks what the heck he's doing.
"Did you see them?" asked Franz. "See who?" asked the night manager.
Franz looks crazy.
By now, Bob and Sally have made it to the Tilford building. I think they made it in record time.
Yeah, because the elevator operator isn't there yet. He must come in at 8, maybe?
But they need to get to the 5th floor, and the elevator operator won't be in for at least another hour.
Bob asks about the freight elevator, and Sally says that deliveries are usually there by the time she arrives every morning.
So Bob drags her to the back of the building to find out.
They see a delivery guy disappear into the building. As they wait for him to return, a vicious dog sees them and tears after them. Bob tries to fight him off with a nail. Sally spots a box destined for Dolls Incorporated, and Bob also takes that nail and rips a hole into it so that they can hide there.
The delivery driver, who's played by Bill Giorgio, who was the bus driver of War of the Colossal Beast and will appear in The Spider, picks up the package that Bob and Sally are hiding in and places it in the next load up to the 5th floor to be delivered to Dolls Incorporated. Once delivered, Bob and Sally climb out of the box and are relieved to see that Franz has left the door to the back room open.
They run back there as a key turns in the lock. It's Franz. He sees the box with the hole cut in the side and knows what's up. But for some reason, Agnes has paid him a solo visit at 7 a.m. alone in downtown L.A. in her brownie uniform. This was hard to buy.
Franz hears her scratching at the door and calling out, "Mr. Franz," but he chooses not to answer. In the hallway, Sergeant Paterson appears behind Agnes and asks her what she's doing. Then Agnes spills her guts about things she shouldn't even know about. She says that Mr. Franz told her she could come anytime to play with the dolls. He makes little people onto big people. And a kitty, too. Paterson thinks this tale is adorable and picks up Agnes to take her to school.
Franz is relieved and turns his attention back to the box, but finds it empty. He darts back to the workroom, where the shrinking thing is running. He pokes around looking for Bob and Sally, but can't find them.
Just then, a full-size Sally emerges from the closet. Franz goes for the door, but Bob tells him to get away from that door. Then Bob grabs Sally and says, "Come on, we're going to the police."
As they leave, Franz pathetically bleats for them not to leave him alone. And that's the end.
This is the American International Podcast, and we're discussing Attack of the Puppet People from 1958.
The working title was The Fantastic Puppet People, and this title was later used in at least some television airings. Gordon said in an interview published in Monsters of Filmland that the title was changed to make the film more saleable. He said he regarded Attack of the Puppet People to be a tongue-in-cheek production aimed at teenagers, with light and humorous elements included to offset some of its more terrifying aspects.
Some promotional materials use the title War of the Puppet People, but the official title change had been announced in newspapers by May of 1958.
It's been widely reported, although I couldn't find a source, that Susan Gordon, the daughter of Bert I. Gordon, was a last-minute substitute for another child actress who became ill and couldn't perform, and this was her film debut.
Prop master Paul Blaisdell and his wife Jackie made a number of the props in Attack of the Puppet People, like two versions of the Jekyll and Hyde puppets, the teacups, bar of soap, and ruler. The oversized telephone was borrowed from the LA Phone Company. In the book Paul Blaisdell Monster Maker, Paul Blaisdell is quoted as saying, "We either had to make props that were 6 times larger than life size or 6 times smaller, or both." Jackie Blaisdell received a film credit alongside her husband for the first time in Attack of the Puppet People, as one half of the team providing special designs.
Gordon and his wife Flora handled a lot of the special effects shots, like mad exposures placed on a split screen to show normal-sized John Hoyt with the miniaturized people in the same frame, or shooting something from very far away to make it look small. The dolls depicted in their tubes are photographs, and the actors had to try very hard to shoot from the correct angle to avoid us seeing that they were one-dimensional.
Attack of the Puppet People was rushed into production by American International and Bert I. Gordon to capitalize on the success of Universal International's The Incredible Shrinking Man, which came out in 1957.
The scene where Bob and Stan climb down from the work table as they attempt to get to the shrinkway was very taxing for both John Agar and Ken Miller. In an interview with Film Facts magazine, Miller, who played Stan, said the most horrendous physical thing I've ever had to do was on that movie. The scene where I climb up the door to peer through the keyhole. When I was about halfway up, the doorknob started to come off. I thought I was going to fall and kill myself because there wasn't a net or anything to save me. I yelled down, "The damn doorknob's coming off," and the director yelled back, "Keep going, it looks great." Then to make matters worse, my pants, which felt like they'd been glued on, started to split at the crotch. So I yelled, "My pants are starting to rip." And Bert yelled back, "Are you wearing underwear?" And keep going.
In an interview with Tom Weaver, who did the commentary for the Scream Factory DVD release, Agar said, "I had to climb an oversized telephone cord and pull myself up onto a giant table, and they were betting I couldn't do it. But Gordon was saying, he'll never pull himself up there. And I said, the hell I won't. Don't tell me when I can't do something. That's just when I'm going to break my neck to prove I can do it. And I did." Agar said climbing the cord was difficult because the rope he was climbing was made of rubber and stretched as he climbed. In another interview, Miller said Agar was so sore afterwards that a masseur had to be brought in for him the following day.
In his book, The Amazing Colossal World of Mr. B.I.G., Bert I. Gordon wrote that Attack of the Puppet People was my third film with American International, and the most fun to make. It brought back memories of my high school days when I belonged to the Puppet Club. In fact, it was probably the memories of making the puppets that inspired me to write the screenplay. Gordon also said that Attack of the Puppet People was star John Hoyt's favorite of all the films in which he starred.
In one account we read of the making of Puppet People, the end originally called for Agar and Kenny's characters to be captured before they could make themselves the right size again. After they are returned to their tubes, the audience could hear a police siren in the distance, offering up the hope that they might yet be rescued. Gordon then changed the ending on set to the one we all know today.
Attack of the Puppet People premiered on June 30th, 1958, and went into wider release in August of that year. Puppet People was paired with War of the Colossal Beast, the sequel to the film Bob and Sally were watching at the drive-in, and another Bert I. Gordon film.
June Kelly, who played Sally, promoted the film on a 5-day tour of West Texas in June of 1958. That same month, Bert I. Gordon returned to his home state of Wisconsin to promote Puppet People. According to H. Llewellyn Anderson, writing for the Kenosha News, Gordon told a group, made up mostly of teenagers and young adults, that horror pictures were just coming into their own and would replace westerns in most theaters. Television pretty well has the western market cornered. He also told the audience that viewers want more gore, less creepiness, fewer women, at which girls and older boys shouted in protest, and no horror pictures dealing with the future.
That's not true.
Taglines for Attack of the Puppet People include, "Terror comes in small packages,"
12-inch dwarfs versus the crushing giant beasts.
See the wild rock and roll dance of the doll dwarfs.
And this one for the twin bill, incredibly fantastic. You won't believe your eyes.
In its review, the Los Angeles Times called the film rather well done minor key science fiction, particularly praising the writing, saying George Worthington Yates' script, which is not without a certain humor, is several cuts above average in this genre.
Marjorie Adams, reviewing for the Boston Globe, wrote, "The appearance on the screen of most of the characters shrunk to puppet size caused early audiences of teenagers to shriek with delight, but said the picture is more comedy than melodrama, and after describing the story, said this is scarcely suspenseful plot. It stands to reason that producer-director Bert I. Gordon isn't going to allow his hero and heroine to remain dolls." Finally, Adams wrote that the trick photography is the best part of the film.
In June of 1958, Dick Williams of the Los Angeles Mirror attended a premiere showing of Attack of the Puppet People at James H. Nicholson's home in L.A. that was attended by Bert I. Gordon himself. Nicholson had assembled a group of teenagers to serve as critics and played Attack of the Puppet People and the Screaming Skull. According to Williams, the twin bill fared well, noting which parts of the movies caught their interest and shut them up. Nicholson says they don't hesitate to give the horse laugh to anything they don't like or that they consider phony. It was clear, concluded Williams, that this is an engrossing theme for teenagers.
Harrison's report and newsletter for film exhibitors said of Attack of the Puppet People, although it is not science fiction, this program melodrama should get by fairly well with those who enjoy fantastic stories. It will require considerable exploitation, however, if the exhibitor is to benefit from its unusual theme. Much imagination has gone into the story's treatment, and thanks to the exceptionally good special effects work, the action holds one in tense suspense. The picture, which is being packaged with War of the Colossal Beast, deserves top billing. The photography is good.
The Catholic Register rated Attack of the Puppet People as Class A1, family and unobjectionable for general patronage.
Attack of the Puppet People reportedly played a part in what was then one of the greatest political scandals of all time. A 2002 article in U.S. News & World Report said that the Watergate burglary lookout, Alfred C. Baldwin III, was watching Attack of the Puppet People on television at the time of the break-in, the evening of June 17, 1972, from his hotel across the street from the Democratic National Headquarters, where the break-in was happening. But as he was distracted by the film, he did not notice a police car pulling up at the scene in time to alert his accomplices, who were subsequently arrested. This is portrayed in the HBO series White House Plumbers, where Baldwin is portrayed by Zach Orth.
Attack of the Puppet People is the fourth film from Bert I. Gordon that we've covered on the podcast out of 6 that he's directed for AIP.
2 to go.
And like all of the others, this one does contain some questionable science.
A lot of science fiction contains questionable science. That's why it's called fiction. A lot of the time you just have to go with it, because otherwise you're just going to sit there and quibble about, could this really happen? You're watching a movie in which it did happen, so just go with the flow.
Yep, you have to suspend your disbelief for at least the length of the movie.
Afterwards, you could talk about how stupid it was, though. Things that you can do with light, you can't necessarily do with matter. So that principle doesn't hold at all.
It's really kind of sad, the motivation that Franz has for doing this in the first place. I mean, he's obviously going about it in all the wrong ways. And I don't know how keeping people in suspended animation 90% of the time is going to cure your loneliness. He just treats his so-called friends as playthings. He gets to take out once in a while and watch and see how they do things.
Yeah, men will do anything except seek therapy. This is an extreme case. He was left by his wife, but instead of, I don't know, maybe trying to date again or seek out other friendships, he decides he has to kidnap people and shrink them down so that he can bust them out for a party every now and again. That doesn't really make sense. And the frequency with which he does this is kind of alarming.
You mean the frequency at which he shrinks people or the frequency at which he throws parties for his little people?
The way he's kidnapping people. You work for him for 2 months, and the next thing you know, you vanish and you're never seen again.
They have to give him a reason. As long as they're staying around in his life, he's going to keep them normal size. But if they threaten to leave for any reason, Janet Hall took another job, so she had to be shrunk down. Bob was going back to St. Louis.
Bernie the mailman was going to retire.
Yeah, you can't leave this guy. He won't have it.
I wonder what Mac did. Was he going to be deployed or something? He had to be shrunk down. Or Laurie? Laurie's a teenager. That is the most problematic of all. She's a kid. Didn't anybody go look for her?
Yeah, it would have been fun to hear everybody's backstories of their lives before being shrunk.
Did he ask her to babysit his dolls and she didn't want to?
She doesn't want to do anything, so maybe.
She's a teenager. Duh. And that makes me wonder about the other puppet people who aren't Bob and Sally. First of all, there's 4 at large in the theater or wherever. We don't know what happened to them, but it's likely that Franz never found them. Or if he did, he killed them.
Right, and each one of them would have to make their way back to the lab to be resized. We can assume that Bob and Sally would go look for them after they contacted the police.
That's right. That's what I would assume. But what about the other ones in the case? Bob and Sally left them there. There's other tiny people in there. Bert I. Gordon is in there.
And they could be revived, theoretically. But at the end of the movie, they leave Franz alone with that machine. Who's to say he's not going to destroy that thing and kill himself before the police show up? Because that's kind of his plan anyway. They're stuck doll size forever.
Right. This just doesn't make sense. Bob's a big guy. Franz is a little old man. You could easily contain him somehow. They could have brought one of the puppet people with to explain, we're not crazy. Look, I'm going to take the lid off and this person's going to come to life. It's not just a picture of somebody. I guess they think they're going to be taken at their word. Paterson still doesn't believe, no matter what Agnes told him. They could have brought the tiny cat. What happened to the cat? A lot of unanswered questions here.
I think the effects in this one were really pretty effective for the most part, aside from that one shot with the rat running next to the car.
Especially given the time period. The scenes where Franz and the puppets are in the same shot, that looks real. It looks good. It's
much better done than in Amazing Colossal Man, where we could see through Glenn Manning when he's walking through the desert.
The way we could see through the rat when it was standing at the same height as the hubcap.
But the most effective part, I think, isn't necessarily the effects, but the props that they're built by the Blaisdells. And that was the same thing in Amazing Colossal Man, too, when he's trying to thumb through that little Bible.
Somebody had to make that.
And they spend extra time showing these props when Franz tells them he has treats for them, and he picks up the little champagne bottle in each of the cups and makes sure that each one gets its close-up so you can see the Blaisdells work.
They made a bar of Dove soap that looks exactly like a bar of Dove soap, but it's giant to Georgia when she's taking her bath. And they had to make dual props for a lot of these scenes, one for when Franz was holding them and one for when a puppet person was holding them.
When the puppet people were holding them, they would just be normal size to us. So they wouldn't have to be made necessarily. They would just exist, and they would have to make the miniaturized versions of those for
the champagne bottle was bigger than them. I would say it would be like as tall as your knees at least.
Well, if it was actually made to scale, it would have been just a regular.
It wouldn't have very much champagne in it, though.
It would have as much as is in a bottle of champagne.
Maybe it was a Magnum. See, I would never be able to do this because I would not be able to puzzle out how big everything should be in whatever shot. But yeah, the props are amazing. That's some really detailed work that had to be done. The life-size puppets. I almost thought it was a person playing Dr. Jekyll character.
I did the first time through.
Yeah, for a sec.
But the way it was moving, it was obviously just a giant marionette.
And then when Bob beats the crap out of it, you can tell it's not really a person.
Well, the first thing he does is decapitate it. So yeah.
There could be a little person in there still. So it's an interesting movie. It's got a lot of good to it. It's got a lot of weird to it.
A lot of weird.
Franz is so strange. I don't know how he gets away with this. He's just creepy in general.
Yeah, Sally's creeped out by him at the very beginning, and she takes that job anyway.
I heard the DVD commentary. The reviewer couldn't understand why she decides to leave right away. I got it. This guy's odd. You don't want to work for somebody who gives off this desperate vibe. I'll hire you. It doesn't matter what your experience is. And oh, by the way, will anyone miss you if you disappear? Perfect. Yeah, that's a giant red flag. But then she put up with Bob, and Bob was an ass. She even agreed to marry him. Based on what? I cannot say. The guy had no charm. He didn't sell anything. I don't know what she saw in him.
I thought it was just so weird that he came to the Dolls Incorporated without any real agenda. He never tried to sell anything.
Or be hired as a salesman.
He just came there and started working as a doll maker. And apparently the only reason he stuck around is because Sally was there. At least that's what he said.
Yeah, that's problematic too. Stalking somebody at work? Not cool.
Well, it worked out for them. I'm sure they're going to go ahead and get married.
Well, I doubt Sally wants to work for anybody else ever again. I wouldn't trust any bosses.
It's the 50s, so she's able to be a housewife. She doesn't have to work.
At certain income levels, not all women were housewives. A lot of women worked, including my grandmothers.
Well, in those days, it was possible to sustain a household with one income.
At a certain level, yes.
It's more likely than it is today.
Oh, for sure. So you said that this is the fourth of 6 Bert I. Gordon films that we're reviewing. I know we've done Food of the Gods and both The Colossal Man, and then this one. What 2 do we have to go?
The Spider and Empire of the Ants.
So both bug movies. Not looking forward to that. I've seen The Spider before. That was a Mystery Science Theater. Earth versus the Spider, I think it was called then.
Yeah, I think Earth versus the Spider is the on-screen title, or at least a television title. I have to look into that a little more. All the advertising material says The Spider.
I think the title of this movie is very misleading. The puppet people never really attack. And they're not really puppets, they're dolls. It's the doll factory. I'm surprised they didn't call them doll people. Escape of the doll people or something like that would have been more accurate. Probably not as good for marketing, though.
No, Puppet People has the alliteration thing going for it, but yeah. You're not wrong.
Well, that's why it's so hard for us to keep saying it. We keep fumbling it when we're talking. Doll people is much easier. I guess they're puppets in the way that he can make them do what he wants, or else he'll punish them somehow. Poor Laurie eventually did have to sing for him in the song written just for the movie. It was weird having a girl sing that song because it sounds like a song a man would sing to a woman, but she sang it to a boy.
We most recently saw John Agar play twins, at least briefly, in Flesh and the Spur.
Oh, that's right. Well, he was only one twin for the cold open, and then he got killed.
The character he played there was a little slow, I think.
Well, he was more likable than Bob.
But both performances, I think, were more believable than his character in Xantar, the Theme from Venus, when he played Peter Graves.
That's a Peter Graves role, and only Peter Graves could do it justice. But yeah, John Agar, he doesn't really have a personality of his own to me. Even in character, he's not really a personality. He's just sort of a guy who says the lines. You don't feel like you really know him as a character. I don't think there's a lot of emotion in his performances. Maybe anger. He can do anger.
Yeah, when he smiles, it's not believable. And when he laughs, certainly not. He does this weird laugh in this one. When Sally first mentions that Franz talks to his dolls, he kind of goes,
well, that did make me laugh, the way he laughed.
And John Hoyt here doing some kind of a European accent. And this is the third time we've seen him in an AIP film. And it's the final time we'll be seeing him in an AIP film that we cover on the podcast because he hadn't done anymore. But we did see him, as I said, X the Man with the X-Ray Eyes. He played a colleague of Dr. Xavier's, offered him a job, and he was also in The Time Travelers.
And he's really pathetic in this role. And I think he's supposed to be, but he carries it a bit too far. We're not supposed to believe he's evil for doing all this stuff because he's so lonely. I don't think that he's portraying it the way it needs to be portrayed. There has to be a bit of mad scientist in there. Instead, he's just this pathetic character that you're supposed to feel sorry for, but you really kind of hate. How dare you?
I think he does a pretty good performance here. I think he's supposed to be a creepy guy, and he pulls it off.
Yeah, I just wish there was a little more madness to this scientist. He thinks he's perfectly legitimate. Maybe that's part of the madness.
And it's kind of amazing. This guy's in showbiz working with marionettes and figures out a way to do this.
To make doll-sized people?
I mean, that's science that science hasn't worked out.
Yeah, even now.
And a puppet builder did it.
Right, so why doesn't he seem more science-y? Maybe it was just a fluke. He got this one thing right.
It's one of those things we're just not supposed to think too hard about. There's a lot of that in this movie.
I guess. Like we said earlier, he kind of got off with no consequences. Bob didn't slug him, didn't try to rescue any other puppets, just left him there crying. I think he deserved more. What he did was truly evil.
We also had June Kenny return, who we saw as Tina in Sorority Girl.
The pregnant one. She was okay in this.
Yeah, I think she's fine.
A little too passive, but that's how they portrayed women back then. She could have been cutting the hole in the box while Bob was fighting off the dog, but she just stands there. She stands there a lot.
I think she does hand the knife to Bob to do that, though, doesn't she?
The nail?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So how are you going to rate Attack of the Puppet People, Cheryl, using our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic?
Well, with as many quibbles as I have with the movie, I don't think that takes away from the fact that it's a really good AIP film. If you judge it by the other films in the AIP canon, I think it comes out as a good example of their attempt at sci-fi, popular sci-fi, something to appeal to a mass audience. And their goal was to appeal to teenagers. And I think that they pretty much succeeded. That's probably why the character of Laurie was a teen, just so that they would be represented on screen some way or another. And I guess Stan was also supposed to be young, perhaps not a child, but young. And it's engaging. It's entertaining. It made me laugh, maybe not for the right reasons, but it did make me laugh. It did have some comedic elements. And I didn't fall asleep. I wasn't ever bored. So I think I'm going to give this an A. It's a classic of the genre, I believe. And I think it's worthy of an A rating, despite the fact that there are some times when I question the science, the motivation of Franz, the ending, what happens to the other people. I don't think it's an intermediate film at all. Despite the problems I have with it, I'm going to go with A. What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you. My biggest problem with Attack of the Puppet People is the title Attack of the Puppet People.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It works really well, I guess, to get people in the theaters, but it doesn't really explain what happens in the film at all. There's no attacks from the puppet people. And like I said, I think the effects are mostly really good in this, aside, again, from that one scene, which is so weird. I want to go talk about that again. Bob and Sally run past a car, and they go maybe halfway up to the height of this car's tire, and then a rat chases them, which has to be larger than them, so it's as large as the car's tire. And then the next shot, the rat's being devoured by a cat, so the cat must be huge.
The other stuff that we see next to it make it appear to be regular sized, like a can sitting there. Big error on their part. They shouldn't have put it next to a car.
Car should have been blown up to a larger size to scale. And aside from the Franz's character's motivations. I think the story works for what it is. It's obviously bogus science, but I think the performances are mostly good. John Agar is John Agar, so you get what you get with him. But everybody else is fine. I like the bits with the puppet people when they're partying.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has kind of their own personalities. Laurie's the I don't want to do this girl, and Stan's the I want to get with Laurie guy. And Georgia is the party girl, and I'm not sure what Mac's story is. He's a Marine, and he was the first to be shrunk, and that's really all we know about him. But anyway, I believe I read that Bert I. Gordon considers this movie the most fun he had making any of them.
Yeah, I read that too.
And also Susan Gordon makes her first appearance, which is kind of cool. She would go on to do a few films, mostly for her father. She plays the little girl in Tormented, Boy and the Pirates she's in, and as an older teenager, she's in Picture Mommy Dead. And she also appeared as a younger version of a character in The Five Pennies, which was not directed by Bert I. Gordon. So she did work outside of the family as well.
She's adorable in this.
Yeah, I met Susan several times at Monster Bash Festival, and she was a really cool person. I had a bit of a crush on her. So I'm going to give this one an A as well. Not that it's a great movie. There's a lot wrong with it, but it's a fun watch, and you're not bored watching it, ever. It's like 79 minutes or something, and it goes by at a brisk pace. You could definitely find worse ways to spend that 79 minutes. So this movie is going to get an A from me as well.
We would love to hear your thoughts on Attack of the Puppet People or any of the other movies we've covered or anything AIP related. Find us on our website, aippod.com. There we have a contact form where you can share your thoughts with us or requests. And we also have more information on the movies that we've covered, trailers, lobby cards, posters, how you can find them to watch. And you can listen to other episodes of the podcast. You can go to our store and help us keep going with the podcast by purchasing some of our awesome merch. And we have a request out there for anyone who can help us find missing films from our library. There aren't that many, but the ones we're missing seem to be very hard to find. That's aippod.com. Visit us.
And that's our take on Attack of the Puppet People. So until next time, for the American International Podcast, I'm Jeff Markin.
I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.